Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. I am your resident neurodivergent mama, Princess Ebony, and you're listening to the In Full Color and Released Surround Sound Season 2. We are on episode 2 here, guys, and I wanted to talk about something that a friend of mine brought up, I believe back in March, and I'm only remembering that because it particularly relates to autism. If you remember about me, I am AUDHD, which means I have experiences and components of both autism and ADHD, particularly when it comes to my communication. And then I have an ADHD brain. I can completely sit still for however long, for whatever reason, without nothing to entertain me except my thoughts, because they're bouncing all over the place. For some reason, nighttime driving specifically generates the most calm because at nighttime for me, I have a lot of ideas pop up. Has that ever happened to you? Have you ever recognized yet when your best ideas come or ways in which your neurodivergency lends itself to be a benefit, to be an asset for you? Well, before we even continue with that in other episodes, I wanted to take this time to honor that conversation I had with that friend I told you about, which, by the way, that also witnessed a great declaration, which up until this point, I think you can still actually see it on my Instagram in full view. Fully scary, but I did it. And I've pivoted away from that type of format, being on social media, because I now know it's not me anymore. If you haven't picked up on that by now, that is the case. But I am still doing stuff like this podcast here, writing my book, and doing my best to show up as a full human being with the understanding and the language that I now have, because I'm a late self-recognition neurodivergent mama. And if you are the same, I wanted to ask you, what was it like? Your impression of people who had ADHD, ADD, who are on the spectrum. And I'm not saying that you're, dumb or anything close to that, but we all have narratives around ideas and concepts, people's beliefs, our perspectives, maybe just the influence of the individuals we were around, the authority figures we had to abide by. And I'll leave that one right where it is, or the environments we were present in. So much so that I had a friend that I've known since college who didn't actually tell me something about themselves that I could, deeply and truly relate with and connect with until we were in, like the 5th or 6th year post-college of knowing each other. I only met them in college, but then afterwards, right when I was starting the podcast, they let me know. And I was so surprised. And she recounted a story that I had come across in my research to see if this was possible, if there were Black women who could be autistic, we were just excluded from that narrative. And I understand there are a lot of spaces in which there's a heavy history around being excluded from certain spaces and not being able to pull up a chair to the table. But this seems like to be in that true gray area where it's not a good or a bad thing. It just is. And then I was visiting this particular friend that has inspired this episode specifically about talking about it. And I remember being in March because April was supposed to be, or it is, Autism Awareness Month. And maybe my reticulator activating sense is just going haywire still, because every time I go to check out at a grocery store or pass a bookcase or installment or bookend somewhere, I'm seeing covers of, pretty well known, more than me at this point in time, on covers of publications and other types of reading material like magazines, talking about how they themselves are autistic, or they have ADHD, or they're finding out that they have deep sensory needs and have accommodations, or they're making these different changes in their life, or just being an advocate in the autism space specifically. And I was like, wow, you look like me on this cover. Why wasn't this apparent? And then I would sit in the milliseconds it takes for my brain to form a whole universe of ideas and beliefs, how quickly our brains are. Wow, come on. It's no wonder I can't keep up, or I always had trouble writing faster or keeping up writing with how quickly I would talk. That's how I would do my oral reports and essay in primary school, elementary, high school. And then the teacher would be like, I think at this particular point, you couldn't catch up with what you were thinking and saying, and it showed in my writing. But I could still do that just in the grocery store on a less extensive sense because I'm not in school like that being graded. I'm the only one grading myself here these days. And by the time I get to checkout, I don't have a whole dissertation in my head about what I just seen or heard and actively picking and plugging into my belief system right there. I can't be the only one who does that, right? And again, it's been able to help me get out of some sticky situations with my children because they are asking about some things that are a little over their head, and I have to figure out an answer that honors and acknowledges their attention, their awareness, but is appropriate because of their age. That's one way in which I use it. Please let me know in a way that you use it. So this friend was asking me to share about like this space about how it's not really taken seriously for Black and brown individuals, especially women, since we're left out of like these diagnoses, or we go under the radar so much, which I was very surprised. I believe I'm remembering this right, but you can also misremember a thing. Isn't that the Mandela effect? But anywho, it's a staggering statistic. 3 in 4 girls go without ever being diagnosed or someone in their sphere of influence catching their particular brand or flavor of neurodivergency because of the high masking and high empathetic, I guess, natural traits and abilities us females have. But that there are actual hindrances for these young Black and brown women to get diagnosed, for which the second friend told me about their story. And I was so surprised because technically they'd been knowing it had been found out for a long time, but that they just weren't made aware of it. And I was like, whoa, that sounds way too close to so many stories I've seen in these Facebook groups that I'm no longer a part of just because I'm not a social media person. Not any knock to a group. If you find your space, you find your space. There's so many that I joined. All the names are cool, quirky play on words of autism or neurodivergency or late self-recognition or just for women only or ADHD that I have forgotten any single particular name. But go to that search bar, find a group, see what works for you. And if you are a social media girly, then it will be perfect. Have that app on your phone, granted that you're using it responsibly and that your screen isn't so scattered that it makes you scatterbrained and you just get sucked into doom scrolling mode. I want to advocate responsibility when it comes to our mobile devices, y'all. But yeah, you can still find those spaces. Yet in those spaces that I found, the same story occurring over and over. And over a friend who, so far as we both know, they are not on the neurodivergency spectrum, was just saying that like, there was like a negative connotation. And there was one particular group I will not forget. Their rules and regulations was talking about, if you are someone who's not a neurodivergent woman, you can still be in this group, but please be mindful of your response, your comments when it comes to someone who is taking a very brave, scary leap to be courageous and put themselves out there. Even if like 99% of the posts are posted anonymously. That should be a very clear indicator of the fragility of some of these people. Their late self-recognition have gone through divorces. I know some of my own family who has experienced that particular experience. And so just be kind, have grace, just acknowledge it, and sometimes just sit and be quiet and recognize that maybe you would have a different reaction. You would be going about it differently than this person is if you have had their exact same experience. Because you never know. But then again, they're not me forming this whole world of their belief systems and the time it takes you to check out at the grocery store and the time it takes you just to post or read something in a group that you're a part of. You can easily leave at any point. Or literally from the group or just like outside the app and go move on to something else, to Netflix or something. And they were sharing how in your comments, in your response to these posts in this group where most people are posting anonymously, do not suggest any religious solutions. And secondly, don't suggest anything that has anything to do with like indigenous tribes or something like that. I found that so interesting. I was grateful that I was like, yes, the religious thing. Because when I grew up in church, there was talk about, the devil made you do it. The devil was in my actions. Like there was no accountability there. There just wasn't. I think there's something called church punishment or something. Church I had ever stepped foot into. As far as I knew, they didn't practice that whatsoever by no stretch or means of the imagination. And it's no knock to churches if that works for you. That works for you because they have a very strong sense of community. I did learn that from another podcast that I truly love, The Happiness Project with Dr. Lori Santos. A very strong community. But outside of that, I can see how it was actually helping me, and so much so that when I got onto my own and I could make those decisions for myself, and there was no authority figure I had to answer to, it was very clear this isn't the best use of my time. I need to find other spaces in which I was accepted. I've yet to find a full space, so I started with one person, my husband, and then we created our own space, our family. Oh, nice tearjerker right there, I know, right? But going back to that particular second part, I do have like some Native American, ancestry in my family. That's about it. I'm not, going to be participating in any ceremonial events or representing and stuff like that, because I barely understand it. I do need to know more about it. True. But again, my personal space that I've created, I am responsible for that more so than anything. I'm holding myself accountable to the future men and women of my family, like our children. It's going to have to fit into my current reality, and I'm still working on how all those pieces fit together. But for someone to say, like, don't actively use that, like, there must be something in that space that I haven't come across, because I'm just aware of it on the surface level as far as my ancestry, but not the ins and outs of how that culture is, how they operate. For someone to say, literally, do not mention this, or anything religious, like, Jesus will save you, this deity, go pray to them, they'll heal you, do this ritual, and they'll save you because, like, you are crazy. And so I'm like, for someone to say that, I feel like it's so insensitive. What if they don't have your same belief system? What if they aren't of this Native American descent? Like, that's going to go over their head. Or worse, they're going to feel personally attacked because they don't know. And we know some historical examples where people were unaware, blissfully ignorant, and have caused harm because of fear, or they just didn't know. Oh my goodness. And that was a story I kept coming across that a friend just pulled up out of the blue for me, or maybe it was inspired because of my journey and me starting the podcast, to say, hey, there's been a lot of harm and trauma done to us because no one believed that we were actually different. We weren't just being difficult. We weren't just being picky. We weren't just saying that we have our preferences to stand out. There are some combinations to be had that were not had. I have some experiences, some stories. One, as they come through in this time frame, my parents were dropping me off at a teammate's house for a volleyball tournament. And, my teammate, classmate, friend's dad had commented on something that I said that I completely forgot about how I don't like to eat certain foods. And apparently it really, really hurt my dad's feelings. I can't remember my mom's reaction to that, but I remember being like, you remember that? And my dad being so upset. Later, I think he, snapped at me, and I felt bad. Like, oh man, I'm in so much trouble. And they're dropping me off. So it's like I didn't have enough time to repair that part of our relationship right then and there in that moment. We've moved past it. I'm pretty sure my dad doesn't even remember this now. Still love you, Daddy. Not that I ever stopped. Like, I love you, period. It's been continuous this entire time. I'm pretty sure some people could have repaired in the short time it takes you to drop off, have your pleasantries, and get in the car and the go. While I'm standing there in my friend's driveway, just like, bye, Mom and Dad. No, I need more time than that. Like, I need more time to warm up. You can't just throw me into the situation, dear. And I was like, oh my God, how do you remember that? And he said, I think it hit him personally because it made him feel like, listen, as a provider for his daughter, like for his children, his family. And I was like, no, I don't like eating certain foods because of the experience. Like, I don't like the texture. I don't like looking at it. Some of these foods and the way they're traditionally made are too pungent. Like, I just can't take it. Like, it's a stressful situation. Like, my cortisol, my anxiety is spiking. I would have burned off the calories this food would have replaced it before it even hit my mouth. I was so stressed out around mealtime. So when someone actually asked for my opinion for once, oh my God, I stood on principle and said no. Like, I just cannot. I cannot have this experience with this food. And a coworker we're still friends with today, we even once had a whole conversation about food in particular. And I remember being like, wow, when someone has this many preferences and they're specific about specifically certain sensory, things we encounter on the day-to-day, like eating food, believe that. But if they're a 6, 7, 12-year-old girl, don't just discount them because they're a child and you think they're being picky because of this prejudicial stereotype that's been pushed around that like Black women are difficult. Like we aren't just born that way. Like no one is. That's story number one. And I'm going to leave that there because it got a bit too like in my body right now. It needs to calm down before we go out of this conversation. 3 and 4 girls are, just left under the radar. They aren't found out their neurodivergency till much later in life after they've had degrees, lives, children, divorces, business ventures, financial woes, or finding this stuff out. And maybe if there wasn't such a negative stereotype to begin with, and we actually believed, or people pay attention to us and not for our form, things would definitely be different. I wonder how many of us there are currently. Like, would I be able to recognize this in my nieces and nephews and my youngest cousin's eye? I'm not around them as much because I have my family that I'm raising. And I'm concerned with my little ones. Not to say that I'm not concerned or want to be a part of. But there's only so much of me to go around. There's only so many dollar bills in the bank account to sustain my family's movements right now. And to keep me from imploding from that reality and actively working on it now, I'm here with you guys, doing my best to bring it to the forefront of your mind, having this conversation with you as my creative outlet, to get my voice out there, to exercise it, so that when things inevitably pick up, because I can't say when things change, because they are changing. Just the fact that even one person like I has the awareness that things can change is more than likely, with a whole bunch of people on this planet, things are already changing. Things are already changing. I can only say that they are. And then maybe next time this year, when Autism Awareness Month actually rolls around in April again, we will be having a very different conversation about things. A little bit more of a melting pot in these spaces among the female communities that we have here. Yeah, a very different conversation. So, I don't know if you had your morning tea or your late night cap, but I hope you can sit and savor with that for a bit with me. And again, let me know your experience. What has been your narrative, the story, the construct that has been built, whether by you or by others' influence, and so on and so forth, that we mentioned earlier. What has it been like for you when it comes to, believing us Black and brown girls when it comes to neurodivergency, that we're not just picky, that we're not just being difficult, that we do need accommodation? What has that been for you? I would love to hear it, because in the meantime, I'll be looking out for it for the next episode of Grounded and in Full Color. Thank you so much for sitting with me and chatting, hearing my story and how I have made sense of this and bringing a little bit more awareness to it, even if it isn't technically in Autism Awareness Month. Thank you so much. I am so excited to sit with you again. This is Princess Ebony on Grounded and in Full Color. You guys have a magnificent one.